Hello and welcome to another Edinburgh Northern Cockerel cast. A small change to the billing for episode 23, but between these two there was nothing small about their playing time at Northern. First in is not our first Corkman on the show, nor our first sourdough home baker, but often first name on the team sheet, probably because he was too captain for a couple of seasons. This Ballincollig native, like many of us, found his second home in Edinburgh and rugby calling at Northern. He keeps those trams running on the streets and all of us updated on what meal is in the oven each day. Founding member of Northern Tours so solid crew, he is Cathal Dwane. Hi Cal, what was for dinner today?
It was pulled pork, which has been on since 7 this morning, and homemade sourdough. So quite tasty and quite filling.
Of course, we got the updates, didn't we?
I must admit, the photos did look amazing. I was quite envious as my fish cakes took 40 minutes to cook. Yet again, I'm outnumbered in the pod. As joining Cal on today's pod is another Irishman and a veritable Northern legend who many have already spoken about in the show. A former stalwart of the bunker and the club, this gentle giant added his considerable and slightly terrifying presence not only to the club's front row, but also to its social and touring scene for the best part of a decade. Whilst he may now live in deepest, darkest Tayside and turn out in the colours of Panmure rather than the famous navy and old gold, we all know that the club holds a very special place in his heart. It is, of course, the one and only Mr. John Stampy Walsh. Hi, Stamps, how are you?
Not too bad. On holiday, last day of holiday, so disappointed with that, but all good other than that.
That's it. I think you're the first person to beam live from a hotel room, which is quite nice.
It's a cabin in the middle of Aviemore, but when Northern call, you don't say you can't make it. So here I am.
Exactly.
Right. So firstly, what have we got to drink then, John? First,
I have, as I'm on holiday, I've got a really poor choice, some poor choice and a really good choice. So I've got San Miguel beer, and following that up with the wonderful Brodie Ferry pink gin with tonic and some dried apple.
That was an advert, just
self-promotion.
Yes. And Cathal?
We got a Happiness IPA and a wee 50ml taster of Jameson.
Well done. I've gone full Irish, so a Magners cider and a Bushmills Red Bush. Cheers.
Excellent choices. I've gone for the Brewdog Nanny State because I'm on a health kick, and a cup of tea in a rather offensive mug, which I'll try and keep out of shot, as Stampy pointed out before the call started. We'll move into the body of the interview anyway. We'll start with yourself, Cal. How's lockdown treating you? So carry on.
Yeah, it's not been too bad. It's good to lock yourself away from the day-to-day and take the opportunity. Managed to kick the smokes, kick the beer for 3 months of the first 3 months of lockdown. So yeah, I've had a few changes, but it's good. We're lucky, I suppose. We're both classed as key workers, so the boys have had their routine of the key worker care while we've been going into work. So that's kept their routines and saved our sanity.
Very good. And yourself, John? What have you been up to in lockdown?
I've been the primary care for the kids during lockdown. So Fiona has manfully or womanfully driven the business forward with selling gin, but also hand sanitizer, things like that. And I have tried to entertain a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and try and keep them sane while locked inside the house, which is good fun.
Well done. So let's take it back there and touch on really where you're from, how you got to sort of Edinburgh, what each of you do, and a little more chat about your family then. So John, lead us off with that.
So I am from Cookstown in County Tyrone in the middle of Northern Ireland. My family my dad came from the south of Ireland, so he came from Tipperary. So he had a big background of playing Gaelic football and hurling, represented his county at football and minor level. I with unfortunately my build was always the same, so I was always a very large child. So I didn't really have much opportunity to play sports because I was really not that fussed and running about a pitch when I was younger. Did play Gaelic for a while as a full forward, didn't really move much. And when I was 22, 23, I'd come on holiday to Edinburgh a few times, realised it would be a lot cheaper if I just moved to Edinburgh, because Edinburgh as a holiday destination is ridiculously expensive. So that is basically how I ended up in Edinburgh. I just decided that it would be a lot cheaper to sort of shut up shop in Belfast and head over the water.
Fantastic. And Cal?
Yeah, from, well, what was a little village, Ballincollig in Cork. So yeah, I grew up pretty much same as Stampy, with sport around. Like Dad was Gaelic and rugby, played for Cork Con and stuff. So I suppose I played rugby from a young age, and good with rugby, hurling, football, basketball. Did them all, tried them all. Wasn't very good at any of them, but gave them all a shot just to get out of school and bits and pieces. Yeah, and did my college in CIT and stuff in Cork, and then pretty much like Stamps, I'd been over a couple of times, and I just loved the place, so I just decided, a bit itchy after been out of college 6 months, and just went, fuck it, change the scene, let's go.
Fantastic. And obviously, you've touched on your childhoods a bit there. Interesting fact for you, Stampy. I was doing some research in Cookstown, and I didn't realise that Typhoid Mary was from there. Which is
some of the best and worst things are from Cookstown. So
count you
the best. So it's fine.
Count you the best category. So yeah, your sporting background you touched on there. So, what's your rugby background then? When did you start playing and so on?
So, from my, I have a very, very, very short rugby background. When I was 15, my Cookstown Rugby Club were looking to set up an underage team. And in Northern Ireland, in order to meet the criteria to get funding, you had to play a certain number of games. So I think it was 10 games in the season. I got a phone call on a Friday night to say, do you fancy playing rugby? I was like, fine. On Saturday, got a minibus with a load of 15-year-olds down to Coleraine, I think it was taught how to scrummage on in the aisle of a minibus. Got onto the pitch, could barely run the length myself, but really enjoyed myself. I was running a lot more than anybody else for some strange reason. And loved it. Went to training a couple of times, played a total of 9 games, which wasn't enough to get the funding, so they cancelled the underage program. I then walked away from all sports until I joined Northern. So that was it. I had 9 games at 15.
Fantastic. And yourself, Cal, you obviously touched on a bit more sport, a bit more rugby in your childhood. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was first, I suppose, introduced to rugby by Dad when I was like 7 or 8. So I kind of played it the whole way up started with Ballincollig and played it up there till, I think it was my second year of under 18s. And I had some Munster youth trials, didn't get anywhere past the training camp after the second game. And then went in and played for Highfield for 3 seasons, 18s, 20s, played a bit of J2 and J1, and then kind of fell out of love with rugby in the sense that, you know my attitude. I go out, I run around, I do what I want to do when I want to do it, and that's it. So that wasn't quite good enough for playing back home, so I just had enough, and then I moved over here and took 3 or 4 years off.
So obviously leading us nicely into the next question. How did you learn about the best club ever, and do you remember when this was? Cal first.
Yep. I'll never forget it. I suppose we were I was out with a couple of Irish lads, Conor Eddy, Dave Magner, John Shukaru, Dan Maloney, Jibby. We were inside in the Queen's Arms having a few drinks. And pre-season, I think it was 2007, must be. And the likes of Tony and Drew and whoever else was on that recruitment pub crawl rocked in the door of the Queen's Arms. And Tony knew Magner and Connor Eddy and him from his days at the Grassmarket Bar. Got chatting and stupidly, or well, at the time stupidly, but now looking back at it, it was a good idea. Decided to pop down and see what it was all about. First time down, it was an Exiles game, I think it was, to see. But I'd spent the first 20 minutes looking through the fence of Stu Mel going, this is a lot more than fucking social rugby. And I reread Tony's message and I realised I wasn't quite far enough down the road. So when I got down, saw Tony's big head standing on the side of the pitch for the Exiles game. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, a big memorable head. And I think it would have been about around the same time, John.
So, it was the same time, if I remember rightly. In my first game, which was up at Stu Mel, involved was Cal's first game, Mullins' first game, Spills' first game, Hardman's first game, possibly a few others. So yeah, it was all around the same season, same pre-season. I basically, after I'd moved to Edinburgh and spent the summer watching, I think it was the European Championships on the TV, realised I needed to do something. Googled, went on the SRU website, because rugby was basically all it was built for, and looked for the Edinburgh rugby teams. Came up with 3 teams. There was Edinburgh Rugby, Edinburgh Accies, and Edinburgh Northern. Decided, right, to make contact with Edinburgh Northern, went, I can't remember who I was speaking to at the time. He said, come down to pre-season training, starts here, and give me the directions. Despite having a degree in geography, my directions are terrible. So walked up to Edinburgh Accies and said, I'm here for training. The guy I was talking to, who I think was South African and tanned and looked like a prop, but didn't look like a prop, if you know what I mean. He sort of looked me up and down and says, I think you want the team over the pond. So if you go out the gates and go up. So I ended up going up to Edinburgh Northern. Literally spent the first training session not being able to run the length myself. So I think Breeks had done did those sort of Christmas tree runs, and I managed to get around the first sort of couple of branches, and that was it. So could have given up, stuck at it, and here we are.
Brilliant. I remember those Christmas tree runs. That was I think Breeks' last season of coaching was my first season. I was doing them at pre-season when I turned up. They were not fun.
No,
not fun at all. So obviously you've both spent a long time at the club. You're still, sometimes you're still at the club, and Cal, you're still a member of the club as well. Obviously, what do you see as Northern's unique selling point? And we'll go with you first, John.
So, for me, I guess having turned up at Northern as a 24-stone, can't run the length myself, person who'd played 9 games of rugby, the unique selling point was basically Northern accepts everybody for who they are. If you turn up at Northern, regardless of who you are, you'll get a chance to play, whether that's starting at centre for the ones or on the wing for 10 seasons for the twos, because nobody's quite sure what you can actually do on a rugby pitch. So I think there's that part of it. The social side of things is amazing. I haven't unfortunately been down in a long time, having living in Dundee and having kids. But the social side of things was always amazing. I had the opportunity or misfortune of being a social convener for 3 years or so, organising events, and just the great times that I had doing that, and everyone coming down to the club and being part of one club, but also I guess the nights you had in Baldy's and other establishments around Edinburgh, days down at the festival, the recruitment pub crawls. It really was just a place where anyone who was not from Edinburgh could come and make friends and basically have friends for life.
Very accurate. Yourself, Cathal, what do you think Norman's unique selling point is?
For me, I suppose when I first joined up, it was being welcomed from the minute you walk in the door, no matter who you are and your background. You're in the door, you make new friends, and let's be honest, some of those friends are everlasting. You'll have them till the day you die. And it's like, so the friendships, the family, and the social, for me, is definitely the selling point. It's like, no matter who you are, you walk in that door, you're sorted. You are.
Quite
Without
right.
a doubt.
Well done. So, to your time on the pitch then, talk us through then any sort of favourite games, victories or whatnot, or even a season that you've played. Cathal, you just off with that?
I suppose for me, there's been 3 or 4, I suppose. But my first one, I suppose, first memorable moment was my first twos game for. No, it wasn't my first 2 games. It was my first twos game against Dalkeith, away to Dalkeith. And like me, last 10-15 minutes on the pitch, come off, start shouting from the sideline. And next thing you see AJB sitting on top of the scrum half, just lettering away. Man, that'll always stick in my head because he was smiling as he was doing it. I suppose as anyone would be doing, sitting on top of a Dalkeith player throwing a few punches. My next one, I suppose, probably the league win. Is that 2012?
Yeah, 11-12.
11-12, I think it was. But I suppose my favourite one has got to be my first career, or my one and only career hat-trick for the twos against Lismore a couple of years after that. But Lou was down with William and she took him off for a coffee in Costa and missed my one and only hat-trick.
No way.
But yeah, well, actually, no. Probably my most memorable moment in the club is when I met Lou. I did meet the wife down there, so it all started in Northern.
Do you know, we asked Jacob and Subtle this question, but I think both of you have met your spouses down at the club, haven't you?
Yep. I met Lou the day Mullins' first skate. No, Mullins had, remember the story Mullins was on about Bogey coming over?
Mm-hmm.
That's the day I met Lou. So yeah, 2007.
Yep. And Stampy, either order, right? You choose the order, but most memorable game, and then obviously meeting your wife.
Yeah, so I guess I suppose I have to lead with meeting my wife, and AJB's role in that, sort of trying to find her a husband, is the way he put it. So that's obviously the most memorable thing and most important thing. Most memorable game, like Cal, the league win was a big part. I think most memorable game randomly that sticks out in my head. A cup game. It was played at Backpitch to Murrayfield. I think it was against Hoyt Quinns. It was a really bad winter and lots of games got cancelled, and we got to the point where I think it had to be played or it wouldn't happen. I think we had a ridiculously early kickoff, so it was either 10 or 11 or something like that. It was a really tight game, and I think we needed a point or needed a score to win. It was the last minute, and it was literally, you were at the bottom of a rock. I looked up, and suddenly there was a crowd of people around the pitch. I was like, where do these people all appear from? But it turns out that there was a semi-final of the under-16 schools cup. It's basically all the parents that arrived to watch their game. And Spills, I can't remember if it was a Crawfield kick or penalty from the sideline, managed to slot it. We scored. I think it was just memorable because it was just basically went into a rock, hadn't noticed anything, looked up from the rock, and there was just hundreds of people around the pitch ready for the next game but cheering away. And for some reason, that's the one that sticks in my head.
Very good. And I'm sure both of you have got over the whitewash plenty in your time. John, if you could start off with any tries of yours which might stand out.
Yeah, so the only try that always stands out, because most of them have been from like 2 inches from the try line.
Yeah, okay.
The one that sticks out in my head is against Liberton. Someone had made a break on a really hot day. In my head, it felt like I was running from like the halfway line to support them. They got tackled, turned around, popped the ball up. I felt like I'd ran like 50 metres down the pitch, handed one person off and went over in the middle under the posts. Most likely, and what I've been told is I ran from just outside the 5 metre line and got the ball and put the ball, handed somebody off and went over. But in my head, I ran from halfway, provided this great support run and scored a try, handing somebody off. And that's the only one that sticks in my head.
Very good. And Cathal, you must have a few.
Well, the one I suppose that sums up my playing time at Northern was Ross High for the ones. I think I came off the bench, took the restart or took the 22 or something like that. Got it, went 30, 40 metres over a couple of lads, scored the try, stood up, and just went like that. I think I was on the pitch like 30 seconds or so, scored the try, and couldn't do any more. Larter looked at me and he said, "Yeah, just get off."
Done your bit.
Yeah, my contribution to the win.
Yeah, I remember one of Cal's tries purely because it was against Queensferry. It was he ran about 20 yards through somebody on the line, so literally somebody was lying under him when he scored the try. He put his hands down either side of the guy's head and just screamed as loud as he could in his face, and then got up after scoring his try. I just remember that.
I quite remember that. Is that the same game that Hardman thought he had scored a try, but was actually on the coloured green 5 metre line?
It could be. It was a tough game. Started off as a tough game. I think Hardman thought he scored a try, hadn't scored a try, and then you were the catalyst, I think, for the game sort of turning our way.
Very good. No, from what I remember playing, both of you, very big physical presences. I remember Cathal coming on, and this must have been one of your last games for the twos, kind of playing about 5 minutes, carrying the ball for about 6 players, and then coming off. Probably about 4 seasons ago.
That was every game, Mawdsley.
Every game. Oh.
one carry, and that was me. I was done.
Oh, fair play. Very cool. And the same for yourself, Stamp. You talk about running support lines. I do remember you running support lines, being very mobile for the front row, which is a credit to both of you. We'll move into positional combinations. And we'll start with yourself, John, first. We've been doing this with every Cockerel cast, and I think you've been the second most mentioned prop. So who would be your ultimate Northern front row?
I guess front row is a difficult one because it's not a difficult one. There aren't really that many front rows, especially props that you get a chance to play with. So there's only really a handful of people. So there's Tony was like a brick. He just would try not to move in the scrum. You've got Jeff, whose favourite pastime was punching people and getting sent off. Had his own slot at the SRU headquarters for disciplinaries. John Latham, just all around the pitch, wanted to do everything, just get involved. The right level of aggression, sort of not veering towards the Gary Larmer style of aggression, but right, aggressive enough. And just great ball carrier, good captain. Hooker, we've had a lot of hookers down the time, a lot of good players who played hooker, probably not necessarily their first choice position. So you've got the likes of Josh and Tom Moss played hooker, both really good players, back row. You've Gav Ford, people like Apple. I think for me, the hooker that I would pick would be, I think I played 1 season with him. I think he was at Northern, went away, came back, and Simon Atkinson, the dentist. He was a big guy, but he just seemed to have so much energy. He was one of these guys that was literally everywhere in the pitch. He was in every ruck. He was stealing the ball in every ruck. He just looked like... Do you ever get one of those, and this sounds really bad as a description, but like a dog that just has his nose in everything, and when you call them, they look up and they just look like they've got a smile on their face. And that is basically what I remember Simon Atkinson. He always looked really happy, regardless of where he was, what he was doing on the pitch. Always looked really happy, but he was really good at it as well. A really solid player. So that would be my front row combination. Myself, obviously.
Mm. Fantastic. And yourself, Cal, I've known you as both a back row and a second row, so I think we'll give you, you get to pick 1 second row partner and then 1 back row player who you've enjoyed playing alongside.
So, second row, I suppose my 3 second row partners mostly were Jarv, who grand player. He'd keep on running for you. Nothing special, but you'd have a sore pair of balls coming off the pitch after a line out. Because there was no way, and you know what I'm on about, Stamps, there's no way he could control those legs when you're sticking him up in the air to catch a ball. I suppose you got Greggy Cranston, who was handy on and off the ball, and what a massive boot on him, kicking points from halfway. Or if you were going for an absolutely solid scrum, you'd stick Ben Glasgow in the second row. So they were the three I've probably had most fun with in the second row. Probably, if I were to pick one of the three, I would probably say Cranston, just for his all-round play. And of the back rows I've played with, Jace, you'd be up there in my top three with Turkey, but there's no denying the influence Loggy had on that pack when he was in there. No matter how shit a game we were having, if he was on the pitch and he was carrying, we were going forward, and the confidence was up. So he's got to be my number one back row that we've played with.
So you were involved in plenty off the pitch, both of you. Can you talk us through then one or two of your favourite Northern Nights Out or events that we've hosted? We'll let Cathal take that first.
Does this include tours?
We'll follow with tours, but
for me, the favourite's got to be my Madrid tour, first tour with Northern.
Okay.
Probably the most memorable one in the sense that it was 3 or 4 days. Got absolutely leathered. Flew over on the Friday night with Philippe, his brother, CDP, Tom Page, Andy Bernard. So we arrived late in as Wilson and Marb were being put to bed, I think it was. But yeah, we carried on, played the game on a Saturday, got speared, tackled by Popey. The Popey incident that everyone remembers. But yeah, for me, it's tour. Anything that's been on in the bunker, you know how good a night is when you can't remember much of it. I remember walking in there a few nights at 11 o'clock after raiding the penny jar at home because it was the week before payday, and handing over 40 quid worth to change to Tony Doran and falling out the door at 4 o'clock in the morning with nothing in my pocket.
Exactly. And obviously the night you met your wife, of course. Of course. Yeah. And likewise, Stampy. We'll take that as a given. But any others?
Yeah, so I think tours again, Madrid as first rugby tour. The Budapest tour was just crazy. But I think for me, one of the nights, or the one night out, well, this ironically I say I'll never forget, but I don't really remember, was when Donny Weir was at the club dinner doing speaker, and then the guy that he is ended up behind the bar serving. It was the year that I had somehow managed to be on the Tankard Sevens winning team, so I presented him my tanker and said, you have to fill the tanker of any member who passes it to you, and he did. And I don't remember anything after that. So for me, that was the most memorable night I had at the club, and I don't really remember most of it. But it was that was the last thing I remember: handing him the tanker, getting it back, and then that was it. I got home somehow. Safely.
Good stuff. So a few listener questions then to round up the main stuff. Michael's going to take the first one.
So this one is from his name's back to front for both of you. In your opinion, who is the best Irish player to play at Northern? Cathal first.
Best Irish player to play at Northern? In my time?
Yeah, in your time.
Who are we choosing between? Two of us, Wills, JT, Turk, Jibby, Maloney, Conor Delaney, Colin Bryans, Ian McCann.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's a tough one. I suppose we were all good in our own way. In all seriousness, I would have to go between Jason Turk. Just for the relentless, I suppose, there was no stopping him. You could put anything in front of him, and they were putting their body in the way. You do, like, it's... Wilson probably played his best rugby when he was drunk. Or extremely hungover. And Colin Bryant's, when he was in the centre with Reiki, it was good partnership. But yeah, it's got to be between JT and Turkey. It's just for the relentless tackling in every game. You know that there was very few occasions that somebody was going to get past either of them.
So, I think Cal covered most of it. I think I think Jimmy and Cal could turn a game when they were brought on, or when they started. They could just like make something happen. Whether it's something ridiculous like a chip and chase, catching the whole ball and then making like 40 yards in the pitch or something like that. I have to say Jason Turk for the only reason that, and I don't know, Jason, if you were on the tour to Newcastle and Leeds, and I remember how miserable I felt that day, and the only way I got through that game was I ran behind Turkey. So I knew that I wasn't going to tackle anybody, but Turkey would, so I stayed behind Turkey. And that is, he was one of the few players on the pitch, yourself obviously included as well. You could guarantee that it was going to be a very, very slim chance that you were going to miss the tackle. So I agree with you and Turk for that reason.
Hopefully the said listener is happy enough he got a mention or two there. But he follows up with another one. Who would be the worst Irish drinker at your time in Northern Stampede?
The worst Irish drinker. So there's a few who could fall into that category. Brendan, Go Team on tour, was obviously a classic. However, obviously two stories stay on tour, but managing to get himself home on a bus in the middle of Budapest was an amazing feat. I would also say Wilson, but purely from a volume perspective, he for a while he seemed to be perennially drunk. Played really good rugby, but topped himself up every so often. So I think, yeah, Brendan or Wilson for those reasons.
Any others, Cal?
Maybe Brian's. He got a bit messy when he was drinking, didn't he? Was it he had the incident with Candlish and Jacob Stagg?
It wasn't there, but...
Oh, yeah.
Send that one back.
With somebody, but I can't remember who it was.
I've got a feeling it was Brian's. I might be wrong. I think it was a bit too much and a bit too much and a bit too much of that, so jobs I couldn't. But yeah, other than that, I agree with Stamps in the sense that Wilson would show up go out on a Friday night, show up on a Saturday, top up, go out on a Saturday night, and probably do the same on a Sunday, and then square up for work early on Monday morning, no problems.
He is an impressive specimen. So the next one is for yourself, John, and it comes from @Kim and Aggie. What is your favourite bleach-based cleaning product?
Well, bleach-based. See, what do you call that stuff? It's horrible yellow. So Flora is obviously very important as a disinfectant and makes your kitchen smell nice. There's a yellow stuff. There's this yellow stuff, which has grease in the name of it. I can't remember. Elbow grease. You get it in any sort of decent pound shop. Is amazing. Gets rid of any stains, especially when you've got kids. Painting on the walls, makeup on the walls, makeup on the floor, paint on the floor. Elbow grease works really well.
Just keep it away from any skin contact, John. Yeah.
Well, you just wash your hands afterwards, as with any sort of cleaning chemical. If you've got sensitive skin, wear gloves.
Yeah, move it swiftly on.
Yeah, now that you've said that, I've twigged on what they were talking about. So I'm going to, no. What I would say with that in mind is dilute it first. Don't do it neat. And then have to explain to your girlfriend at the time, your future wife, what had happened.
So yeah, we'll move that one on. Next one for you, Cathal, is from @Greg and John. What would be your favourite slow cooker meal?
Oh, my favourite slow cooker meal. It's got to be. Favourite's got to be the easiest. Got to be the pulled pork. I've tried a few chicken ones and they don't come out the same. So the pulled pork with your Pepsi Max and your cayenne pepper all over it. Quite a good outcome. Melt down the sauce then to make your own barbecue sauce and cover that and stick it in the oven with a load of honey.
Very good. Yeah, I think we overdid the slow cooker chicken. I think my wife's now been halfway along her pregnancy, just can't deal with the sort of the smell of the cooked chicken in the fridge for a few days.
Still a bit much.
Excellent. Well, we'll move to the final question, which is, what are you looking forward to doing most when life returns to normal? And we'll let you lead off on that, Cal.
For me, it's got to be I myself and Lou and Muff and my brother-in-law committed to a fundraiser of climbing Nevis the start of the year for the charity that looked after Dad in his last weeks. So for us, it's getting that done, hopefully in September. We're up the north anyway, up the Highlands in September, so I'm going to try and pinch a day, get somebody to look after the boys and head off and climb the mountain.
Excellent.
Fingers crossed. We did the stairs equivalent here on the start of lockdown. 518 times up and down the stairs. I couldn't walk up the stairs for 4 days after it. I was bum shuffling down with the boys. They thought it was great fun. I was in agony. But yeah, getting up the hill.
Good cause as well. And yourself, Stampy?
Randomly, it is probably getting back to pre-season training, something I've never enjoyed before. But Pam, you're officially start pre-season training today. I'm obviously on holiday, so missing it. But I'm looking forward to just getting out and running and being able to sort of lose a bit of weight and potentially in a few months play rugby again.
Well done, lads. Thank you.
Good ambition.
So next time on the Cockerel Cast, we'll be joined by another Twos captain who recently hung up his boots in spectacular fashion. It's Sacha Blanc. So join us for that one. For now, though, I'm Jason Thompson. He's Michael Mawdsley. Thank you to John and Cal for joining us. We look forward to you providing half the Northern Pack 15 years from now. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.